but they don't believe that. And I think that in itself, that's the difference. And because of that,
What will you do? Now that you choose, what will you do?
The other thing I sense about it also takes me back somehow to this notion that even now in science, in physics, they're saying that this is the dream state,
Mm-hmm.
not the other.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think about it, why couldn't that be true? This is the state to be working out all the imperfections. What do you do when you have to think hard about something? You go somewhere and sort of dream your way through it. You think your way through it. So that's what we're doing. This isn't the reality. The realness, I guess you'd say. As real as it feels, because any genuine thought has emotion and everything that is attached to it, right? So that's what we're living. I'm not saying that very well, but I can understand that.
Well, everything science is unfolding. It's just affirming what we've been saying for years. It's just everything. Were you gonna say something else?
No, I was gonna say I watch Tyler, the Hollywood median guy, and a lot of people want to know. They want closure, as we call it, and they want to know if their loved ones are fine and everything. And all of the response that he gets when he channels these people in, they're saying people who pass, they'll tell them, get over that mess. Just get over it. The stuff that you hold on to, it's not important. So when I'm dealing with some certain things, I'm like I can reflect back on him saying the ones that have passed, like get over it. That's just a weed, a distraction. It ain't worth your time. So
Other comments?
Yeah. Stop me if this is taking it too far in a different direction, but all the things that happen in the afterlife process during the death process, uh, we do every single night when we go to sleep.
Mm. Yeah.
Every single night when you sleep,
Yeah.
it's the same thing that's going to happen to you when you transition. Now, when we transition, it's much more deeper, impactful, and you'll go through it consciously in a way that we mostly don't when we go to sleep regularly. But it's the same idea. So those realms that we think are separate from us only in terms of our own awareness of them. So when we are awake in this sort of physical experience, we are, I think somebody mentioned earlier, sort of laser focused on this experience as a result of a restriction or a constriction of what we can be aware of. And when you go to sleep, that constriction releases a little bit and expands. And when you transition for real, all of that is released. And it takes time to sort of adjust to that new reality. But part of what we go through in grief is the experience of separation from one realm versus another, from this physical realm versus the spirit realm. But there's no separation other than in our own ability to be aware of what is present in now. And we can cultivate that and practice that whenever we desire to.
Yep.
So one of the things, I'm pretty sure we've all heard of lucid dreaming, but if you learn how to lucid dream and the principles that you learn to sort of develop within yourself and recognize and activate, that will can be a big help when you're going through your transition out of this physical space, because it's the same sort of things in terms of experiences that you will encounter in yourself.
That can help you
So-
with your own homecoming, huh? Oh, I'm almost
Exactly.
home. Oh, yeah. I remember when I was in that other room thinking about this. I'm home. Anyway.
Yeah, and I say these things because I have experienced some of them. I have by no means have mastered them, but it is, if you want it, you can do it now.
Thank you, Nick.
Hmm.
Other comments, other thoughts? Thomas, Gospel of Thomas, lodging number 17 says that Jesus said, I will give to you shapes that no eye has seen, sounds that no ear has heard, sensations that no hand has touched, thoughts and feelings that have never appeared in the mind and heart of humanity. And that's sort of what Nick is talking about too. I mean, we are so focused on this physical present illusion that we are just so constricted by the flesh here that it's hard for us to even think about, wow, to be loose from these bonds, to be loose from this constricted shell, put our thoughts.
But think of how, but flip that
Yeah.
and think about what we say about if you have a genuine, rooted sense of oneness, the other, you'd look upon this experience the same way. I mean, how could you commit to this? How could you
Yeah.
take all of this so seriously? So it's the same seriousness, it's just the other part of the equation. It's the yang, not the yin. So it's all, you know.
How could I have spent so much time procrastinating and believing this reality, what I thought was this reality, when I have all this that was available to me? It's something to look forward to. Isn't it?
Well, I think this is just so Buddhist. It's just to me also why they would say, don't think you could just do it all on your own in one split second. It's possible, but what's the function of meditation? It's to give you an opportunity to create a space and to have what we would call experience in that space, and that builds strength and capacity. And the other thing that they say, which I don't think we respect enough, is try when it's possible to have some kind of a teacher nearby if you're transitioning, just to help with this interpretation, like in the Book of Revelation, your ability to work your way up the chakras and not give into those vestiges, those fears that are still there, that hold you back, because it's serious. And the reality that you get is based on what you are in that moment, what you let yourself be in that, let's say, final moment.
I hear you, what you're saying, and it makes sense, because when you, even having someone with you in the transition, the same as when you're having a child. You need someone there to like coach you, so to speak, to help you, bring this child into this realm or however you want to say it. But I see what you're saying. It makes a lot of sense.
But I mean, I have done it, right? As far as I know in this life. But you can probably call up someone, your mother, somebody who means, right? That why are we always saying in all the movies, you know, what's the last thing the guy says when he's been shot and he's dying? Mom, whatever, right? So what is he really saying? Some loving presence. So I don't know if you need to have somebody there if you can't because you're a car accident or whatever, but
they are. I think we have to get past the physical body because I do believe you have that cloud of witness. You have those people there, that energy there, because that's what we are anyway. And I do believe that they are there, and that's why we call out to that familiar
right.
energy.
But I'm just saying the question is whether you allow the connection. Right?
That's whether or not we allow the connection is based on our intellect. We've gotten so intellectual now until we don't. I remember when I was little, people who were in the throes of transitioning always had somebody there with them.
Right.
And even after they transitioned, the shell that they were in, the body never was left alone. It was brought back to the house. Not because they wanted to watch your body, but because they felt like the energy or the life had not totally left that body, and somebody was always there with it. And when it comes to the meditation, I think that Jesus and Buddha said the same thing. In terms of meditating, Jesus said when you meditate, go to your body, which means that get somewhere away from all the distractions. And when you do that, recognize that there is an it that's greater than you, which is actually what we call, quote unquote, the Lord's Prayer. So across religious lines, I see the same spiritual principles, and I also see something else that is actually being ushered in again, and that is a reliance on ancestors who has passed before us. I believe that the whole concept of transitioning lends itself to our being able to have an ancestral guide, or when we not only are in the throes of what we call death, but also when we are in the state of depression, or when we are at a place where we don't know what to do next. I believe that the ancestral energy is available to us, but because of Catholicism and all the other isms, these things, we have involved in these things because we have embraced a religion that does not lend itself to embracing our culture, our understanding of things that we were brought up with. I mean, we as the people, we just started losing the ideas of our Eastern culture. And if we go to islands like the Fusky and the depth of those islands, you find the whole concept of ancestral worship, not worship, but ancestral, reliance maybe, or relationship between the ancestors and those who are in this earth. I remember talking to a guy at the Fusky, and he was talking about how much more real his great-granddaddy was than he was at that particular time because of the things that he guided him with. And at that moment, I was the Reverend Richard, so that didn't make sense to me. However, the historical value of it made sense to me, and I chose the Reverend Richard part of it over the historical value of it. But now I see the spiritual value of not only embracing, but always recognizing the presence of that energy. Especially when I was in Haiti, I've been going to Haiti and some other places, La Paz. I saw the way that they embraced
saying, it makes me wanna go back and find out how we define the term worship. Cause the term worship, in the context I immediately would think of it, isn't the right term, right, for what you're trying to describe. You're not worshiping your ancestors, it would be a connection, it would be a, right?
It's just a
Yeah.
myth.
So my definition of worship, I guess, that comes to mind is sort of, I'm here, the object of the worship is there. That's an idolatry of a form, I mean, it's,
And that's religion.
right,
That's not the scripture.
no, that's the definition that's, I guess, been put in me, and it's culturally
Right. I agree.
reinforced, yeah, so,
And that's the definition I had until I began to look at the scriptures from through the eyes of the Eastern writers, which means that it simply means to submit. And submission does not mean that you're being dominated as much as it means that you are embracing something that has a better vision of something that you do. Worship in the church. Matter of fact, if you were to ask the people in the church what worship is, they couldn't tell you anything. Because if they could, they would tell, the communion table wouldn't be what it is.
Yep.
So, worship, anytime that we talk about worship in the church, is always talking about God, in the sense that, the God of the church. However, when we talk about worship in our settings, hopefully we've got to a place where we understand that we are indeed talking about it. And the idea of reverencing is simply respecting something or embracing it for what it is.
So, what we've been doing today, I think, is just reflecting on the I am that we are. The reminder that whereas in this realm there's a difference given between life and death, in the eternity there it's the same, as it's even more expansive. This life is just a dot in a sentence at that. That it is so much bigger than this. You were gonna say something, Pastor or George?
Yeah, yesterday when I was, we were sitting at the Henry Lake, and they were doing the long jump, and I thought immediately about growth.
Yeah.
And then it came over, the speaker announcing the leader was from Carolina. And he jumped 25 3/4. And I'm thinking over 25-7. And I'm sitting there thinking, okay, because it's like he's going for more. And I'm thinking he's not going to break Rose record. And certainly he didn't, because he jumped exactly the same thing at that moment. It was almost like he could feel a presence there, if that makes any sense to you.
Yeah.
So that in itself, to me, is our ancestral embrace, and the embrace of an ancestor, because whether, I think sometimes when we think about ancestors, we think about someone who's older in terms of age, who transitioned, but to me, ancestor is someone who transitioned from this body before we did. And it's like I could feel his presence there. And I kind of compared that to when my dad transitioned, and how it was obvious to me that the Creator did not intend for us to meet in this life because of the various things that took place. On Friday, I'm getting ready to come. My mama's brother dies on that Friday, and then I'm saying I'm going Monday, and then she dies on Saturday, which means that I would, I didn't have the opportunity, which means that's orchestrated by the other world. Why, I don't know. However, I compare that because it took me a minute to begin to experience his presence, but it only took me place to where I am now.
Mhm.
So I believe that we don't have to wait until a given period to actually experience ancestral presence and ancestral direction and guidance. Because immediately after exiting this realm, that energy becomes aware of everything that is the way that it really is. And because of that, if we are open to it, we can have greater experiences of how things really are because you're attached to that energy of the person who has just transitioned. Is it, yes, that's what I'm trying to say?
Yeah. It's part of that idea of oneness again.
Yes, absolutely. And
Not
and the reason
idea,
I didn't see it
reality.
like that is because I didn't see that then. The one is then. I just saw that I was received of this, but now it's totally different.
Hmm. All right. Other thoughts? Because I'm not going anywhere else. That's where I am today.
That's why I'm shut you off.
What?
That's when you always shut me off. How about that?
Who was that?
This is Rania.
Yeah.
So my the thoughts I had were, excuse me, kind of dovetail what Pastor was talking about for me in terms of that awareness being everywhere. Because I felt I had that performance Friday night after I found out last week, and one of the thoughts that I felt was, that Uncle Orlando could be there now, something he'd never been able to see while he was alive, because he lived so far away. That's not a limitation now, was what I thought about. And something that Audrey said is a peace. I remember feeling that too early on, because it's always hard for me when I can't come home during a time like this, or when something like that happens. And this time I felt that I was able to find that peace here, even that the connection I was able to share as I could over the phone was very helpful. But it was the sense that it's okay, that there's no reason in this case to greet, to wail and bemoan, that death is not an ending was really helpful. And I didn't feel quite the same, feeling of being left out or despondency that I sometimes felt in the past. So that's all I want to share.
Okay. Thank you.
I think that's one of the words in the Bible that just need to be deleted, mourn. Because, I don't want to put on the Bible, but religion has taught us to mourn. Something that's totally opposite when we should rejoice. So, I'll start with me. I just that's one weed I need to get out of my head. Because when my mom transitioned, I wonder why I wasn't mourning. I mean, I could.
supposed to be mourning.
Yeah, never know. You're supposed to be crying, whatever. This is not normal. But now that I realize you don't have to mourn. It's a rejoice, a rejoicing time, because she has passed this way, just like the rest of us gonna have to pass this way, from this. So
One experience to another.
yeah, exactly.
When David mourned when his son was sick, and he rejoiced after he transitioned. Remember?
Yeah.
So, in actuality, if we look at mourning through the eyes of the church or through Christianity, it actually keeps us in search of something that does not exist. And that thing that it keeps us in search of is a heaven as a destination. We are hurt because because the body's gone, of course. But then we are told you're hurt because you're separated from this person. However, you're going to see them again, and you're going to shake hands with them and all that this stuff that doesn't make sense. But when you see it through the suffering of this world, then once you deal with the idea that the pain comes from the physical separation in terms of not being able to see them, but it does not have anything to do with you'll be mourning them from being where they are. I would not bemoan anyone for where they are. I don't want anyone who's close to me, who's transitioned, to leave that place of, for lack of a better term, free energy, to come back to this place of constricted energy. Because now the eye is totally open. Everything is available. But here, everything is so restricted. And I would not wish that upon anyone.
And I believe that's the point. I believe that's the point you made at the funeral too. You said that's when you talked about this definition of death that we have. You made that very point that that they may be sad because of not being able to see the individual, but there's so much more beyond that. I mean, so that was well done. Thank you very much at the funeral.
Yes, ma'am.
I heard a couple people say they had not understood it that way, and it opened things up for them. So, even there other people are going to be seeing, I think, things a little bit differently, and being ready to access the spiritual macro a little bit more than they once did. Okay, where are we? So we understand there's no separation between the Creator and us, or between each other and the Creator and us. Between each other and us, that doesn't make sense. Between us and anyone and humanity, we're one. We're one. Unless anybody else has got any other comments, that's all. That's what I have for today. What else you got, Pastor?
I'll see you next week.
Nick, what you got? Ditto.
Ray is gonna have something.
Nope, I'm good.
George, Lavon, Shell, if you're online. Anybody else? Anything else?
Yeah, Barbara, George has handed me something. Looking at that mourning, right?
Yeah.
In the Aramaic, to mourn means to long for something to occur.
Oh.
Now that's a different look. Longing for them
So
to
if you're
be
longing
on.
for something to occur, and it says you'll be comforted, right?
Yep, that's what you're longing for, the comfort, huh?
And it means that comfort means to return from wandering.
To return what?
From wandering.
From wandering.
Oh, yeah, I got you.
As though you're traveling with no direction. So it appears that there will be an inner balance brought because what are you wanting to occur? What are you looking for? Because if you think about it, when somebody transitions, and internally there was confusion. It feels like nothing is settled, and that in itself is the wondering, isn't it? So, what you're looking for something to bring, as Audrey stated, she experienced peace, and that peace is what brings you from a place of wonder. Does that make sense?
Yep. It do. It does.
You do this?
It do. It does. Thank you, George.
You're welcome.
All right. No one else spoke up. George spoke up. Pastor spoke up. Anything else?
Yes.
Yes.
With what was just said about mourning and going to something what Evelyn said a little while ago in terms of when her mother transitioned. I think that mourning comes from that perceived perception, the perceived perception, of separation between that person and their loved one, and not actually coming to an understanding and realizing that there is actually no separation, or at the very least that you quickly are able to latch on to it again, depending on where you are in your growth.
Yeah.
But it also goes back to example for when Pastor Richard said when his dad passed away, the same thing happened that just happened recently with Rolando, but it happened a lot quicker, and of course, he was a lot more open or in a place where that connection could quickly could happen. For a while going and experiencing death around people, like I felt like I was literally like a psychopath, because and it wasn't always the case, but I didn't feel everything that everyone else was feeling, and if I felt anything, it was just more so the sorrow for the loved ones who were actually experiencing the loss, and I was like trying to be a strength for them.
Yeah.
But that's just something that happened in time because, like I just said, that perceived, and it's only perceived, separation is not actually there, and we all come to a better understanding of that.
Thanks, Shell.
Yeah, I just off of what Sheldon said, like I noticed that more with Orlando this time than any other funeral I've been to, just because I think I'm in a different place than I used to be. But my main feeling when we did when they had the viewing before the actual funeral was I was happy the whole time. But my emotions really didn't well up within me until I began to observe other people and how they were reacting, and began to think of what they must be going through. But it's an interesting experience because I think my first response is not to mourn myself, because to me instinctively that's like a somewhat of a selfish thing for me to do personally. And I just think it's an interesting thing to notice about myself, having gone through all the stages of development I've gone through.
Thank you, Nick.
Oh, and let me, in case anyone's confused what Sheldon was talking about, he thought it had psychopathic tendencies or whatever, but there's a difference. He said that because one of the characteristics of psychopath or sociopath behavior is complete lack of seeming empathy or emotion or response. But it's not that's based in like a sort of confused, underdeveloped, very self-centered sort of worldview and deep disconnection from a lot of things on a spiritual level. But it's very different from sort of what develops in you as you begin to become more aware of who and what you are. It seems somewhat similar on the surface in that you may not have the same outward emotional response to certain things that other people would, but that's because you're sort of dealing with it and coming from it in a coming to that in a different place within yourself than other people might. But the empathy is still there because just like I forget where it says in the Bible where Jesus was talking about why you crying, and when we talk about why Jesus wept, he wept because he recognized the pain in another person who was in the state of feeling that separation very intensely.
Right.
And then he asked, why are you crying? Because then he was already aware of the true nature of this relationship between the physical and the spiritual. But the empathy is still there because you still empathize with other people who are going through that. And so that's part of what that means,
Right.
or what Sheldon was talking about.
Gotcha.
No, absolutely. I'm glad you brought that up, Nick, because I didn't even think about it. But yes, absolutely.
I think we have that in mind.
Yeah.
And you don't want us to think you're a psychopath.
No. It's more so with I guess the root of it is the expectations that you've grown up with and how you're supposed to actually mourn or how you're supposed to feel sad for someone passing away. And then you're like, hold up. I don't actually feel just like I feel joy. Like, okay, you know, it feels, and then you're around everyone else who are mourning, and you know, you kind of like in the midst of sorrow and sadness, and it's like, okay, why do I feel this way? Why do I feel like a bright light, and I'm just bringing that to these people, and I don't feel any type of sorrow. So you first experiencing that, yes, it felt like something was wrong, even though I knew better.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
We believe him. We believe him.
Okay, thanks everybody for your contributions and for your connection and for just being. Thank you so much. Anything else today? Okay, that's it for this moment in time. We'll see what Pastor brings for the next moment in time.
Oh, good, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
All right. Bye.
Depends on what the question is.
Sorry?
Depends on what the question is.
Yeah, that's what I started today with. What are the questions? So, okay, that's it. Thank you guys for
Okay.
everything.
All right, then.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, everyone.
Bye.
Bye. Have a good week.
Later.
Now we got to do.
That sounded like a real person said bye.
It was.
It was.
It was.
There's spoons in there. Anybody want some yogurt?